The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Welcome, Quack.
Program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at nbradio.us.
Ah, there it is. You tuned into the Farron Dozier Show on nbradio.us, 10 o'clock edition and Live Sports. Catch me here Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time, only on nbradio.us. Shout out. How did I do? Was that a good take? That might work. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, did you see the game last night?
Oh, that was a good game.
But did you see the shot?
I lost money from that shot.
Oh,
too,
man, that shot was cold,
I
man.
hated it, but it was good. Damn. What's in those jeans?
You really want to know?
I do.
Exhaustion, muscle spasms, asthmatic issues, unexpected sickle cell trait crises.
Damn. Are you serious? When I was young, I found out I had sickle cell trait. My mom's told me, but I ain't have no knowledge of it. But when I got older, I had a child, and the doctor told me my daughter has sickle cell trait. You know the fact that both parents have sickle cell trait, there's a 50% chance the child may have the trait, and 25% chance the child may have the disease.
Hey, that's what's the count. Do you know that 2.5 million people in the United States have sickle cell trait, 300 million people globally? I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait until I was in the Army, 10 years. Next thing you know, I had a sickle cell trait exertion site.
Sickle cell? I thought that was a black gene or something.
Nah, man, the Latin community is number 2. 1 out of 36,000 babies are being born with sickle cell disease. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European. You gotta know your bloodline, man. There is an inherited gene in our community that has been forgotten. The name is sickle cell trait. WDCONSCT, also known as What's the Count, is out to bring awareness, education, and prevention to people all over the globe. Want more information? Call us now at 323-215-5384 or visit www.wdconsct.org.
Some of us still carry the burden of battle. It threatens to drown us in our everyday lives. In battle, we had our weapons and combat gear to keep us safe, to keep us confident. But when we returned home, we were not armed with weapons and gear to cope with our own minds. I was lucky to find my combat gear, my mental weapon, and it's called Calmago. Calmago is a drug-free device that allows you to achieve calm in less than 3 minutes. In moments of anxiety, stress, anger, panic, or insomnia, not with medication, but rather by activating the parasympathetic nervous system through breathing regulation and multisensory stimulation. A recent study has shown that Calmago decreases PTSD and anxiety levels in veterans, helping those who are suffering and having a long-lasting effect. Visit Calmago.com to learn how you can get Calmago through the VA or with a special veterans discount code.
We veterans came home eager to continue with our civilian lives, only to find ourselves enmeshed in dysfunctional pathologies that erode confidence, dampen spirits, and lead too many of us to self-destruction.
One of the toughest points of my life was I had a really bad mental breakdown. It was between what happened overseas to losing a friend who committed suicide when we came back to decisions I've made during my lifetime and not being able to be athletic anymore, not being able to run anymore. Just a lot of things with the anxiety and everything else that happened to a point where When they pulled me over, I couldn't hang myself because my rope was in my trunk, and I couldn't cut myself as hard as it was. I tried, couldn't do it. So I had about 200 pills I brought from a CVS store. It was, so I ended up taking all the pills, and I woke up in a hospital bed, handcuffed, with a tube down my throat, with hearing all these pills come out my throat.
I went back home, and a lot of things didn't work out, and I had to leave just about immediately after I got back. And I moved down to LA with the little money I had left to start pursuing some goals and dreams. I went to the VA, and they, after a few days, I was able to come down here thanks to whatever they did. And I am currently at the Salvation Army shelter right now. After getting out, without having too many or just about anyone to rely on and no finance, it became a hell of a struggle. I've dealt with this before, but going through it again is not something that I like to do, and I don't really feel like anyone should have to go through being financially unstable, homeless, and have no family or friends. And I see that with a lot of veterans. I'm a lot younger, mind you, I have my own issues, but things can go better for people. Not everyone wants to be a bum,
I've done 2 combat deployment rotations to Afghanistan, and I suffered major fatigueness while I was over there with my mental and my physical health. I was afraid to sleep with my daughter because I aggressively move around in my sleep, and sometimes I could be very violent. With all the things that occurred with me and all of those situations, it lead me up to this point, checking into a shelter. I lost my wife, my daughter.
We veterans came home eager to continue with our civilian lives, only to find ourselves enmeshed in dysfunctional pathologies that erode confidence, dampen spirits, and lead too many of us to self-destruction. It is now time for a new model, one that outreaches and assists veterans struggling with the imperative transition of veteran to civilian. And we, the new breed, with our objectives of inclusion and community, are here to fulfill it. We discovered that we were so deficient in effective foundation skills to navigate our civilian culture that we found ourselves isolated. Among us are those who got divorced, got evicted from residences, faced criminal charges, and most tragically, contemplated suicide. All of that is now remarkably changed through our meeting with and guidance from Caldwell Williams. Caldwell, who withdrew from retirement, has introduced to us to the possibility of returning home and discovering a new, purposeful, and goals-driven identity. And with our newly established skills, we are able to break previously unbroken barriers.
Combat or war inflicts invisible injury upon every participant. Those who've served and who now suffer now need to heal from their invisible wounds. To protect and to defend our homeland, our government invests great time and resources to mold.
So dealing with PTSD is something that requires a sophisticated sort of method of self-discovery to be able to. I wound up in Caldwell Williams program, and everything that they talked about was put to words the things I felt that I couldn't say. The information I had gleaned, the personal insights I had, it was as if someone had already gone through it and had pieced it all together and understood how a person goes through the self-transformation discovery, this transition from having wounds into using them to become whole and complete. And that's what Caldwell Williams program does.
Our medical science community has only begun to recognize the calamity of these wounds in the 21st century, to mold these malleable youth into weapons of war. No less time and resources are needed to stop their self-destruction. We initiate veteran healing and self-reliance. This enables them to launch a successful civilian journey, Together, we civilians can do this.
We are the new breed, and we are going to change that. And we can't wait for you to join us.
We have found a program that is helping us heal our invisible wounds. We are willing to do the work, but we need your help. Please donate.
You are now tuned in to Push.
All right, good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. I'm your host, Farron Dozier. Thanks for listening in. We are streaming on all your major platforms, so wherever you get your podcasts, I'm sure you can go there and check us out. The QR code you see above me, you can go there and donate to our organization. They provide these services for us veterans. They're giving veterans a voice, and yes, I am one of those veterans, retired 24 years. I've started off the show with some commercials, some PSAs, and, a lot of times you might have caught my episodes, with guests and what have you. But today I did not want to do a show today. So I'm being just genuine, authentic, sharing with you where I'm at in my space today, live here on the network. Just embracing the holidays that just passed. My family was here, sister, my niece. I spent a couple days with them, and just really just reflecting and not experiencing the sadness, but it's holidays, and for some of us, holidays are not always pleasant as the commercials may seem on TV. There's a lot of real life things that are happening, and so yeah, I'm in a weird space. I'm not exactly sure what space I'm in, but I'm definitely in a weird space today, and I didn't want to do a rerun, so I asked that you just relate. Sometimes you have to push past and push through how those chemicals in your body are releasing, and causing those thoughts to have whatever thoughts that you have, and then the stories that pop up in your mind, and then the body sensations that goes along with that, and sometimes it's just not, I don't pretend on my shows. My shows are 99.9% organic, and so yeah, I wanted to come today, just so you could see what it looks like when one does not want to be on the radio or be on the show, and still take time to push through, because I know how important this is. This is my personal therapy. I've been using radio for the last 15 years as an outlet, as a way to express myself, as a way to stay connected to people, as a way to stay connected to my brothers and sisters at arms. And so I've been at this for a long time. I know it may seem, sometimes like this is the first time, but it's because I don't have this all figured out. Every episode is a new episode. It's a new opportunity, like it's the first time. And so things happen. You got to be prepared for, especially when you're streaming live, broadcasting from your home or on Wi-Fi or connected to the landline. Things can happen. But also there are days that I question, like, like, why bother? Like, why am I doing these shows? Nobody cares. Nobody's watching. Maybe somebody's listening. Maybe they'll watch the rerun. But yeah, this is a live episode. So I do have some things I want to address. I just want to kind of just go through some of the things that we talk about here on the show. And yeah, just kind of have a conversation with you. Let me see which one of these I want to use. Oh, there's the circle. All right, so we're going to go with the circle. All right, so first up, so this is my clock. See, so this is what I usually utilize when I'm doing my talk shows. You can't really see it though, but the first few minutes is the life of a. The life of a really starts off with the transformation, the personal development education that I've been through. That's the life of starts off at a 2-year-old. There was a 2-year-old decision that after I've done a lot of my healing journeys the last 15 years, I discovered that I made a decision about my mom, that I was disconnected from her at 2 years old. Now, what goes on in the mind of a 2-year-old? You got to do some education studying. You got to find out, because there's a lot that goes on in the mind of a 2-year-old, especially when you understand child development and the brain, and who we are as human beings, and how we're born, and how sometimes those emotions that get passed on to the child while they're inside the womb. Like, I'm not an expert. I'm just speaking from my own personal journey and understanding who Farron is and how Farron got to be this guy in front of you after 55 years of life right now. And I can remember back at 2 years old. And today, I can tell you that yes, that experience of being disconnected from my mom at 2 years old, in my mind, was a very significant time as a child. But I can tell you, over the last 15 years, I'm very grateful for the life that I was given. I thank, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my family members, everyone, when you look at life, who raised you. So that 2-year-old, that life of a 2-year-old was very significant. A lot of people, when they do this work, they can go back and remember 2-year-olds, throwing tantrums or trying to get attention from their family members or their parents or whatever that early age childhood conversation is that we all experience if we tell the truth. A lot of people block out those memories from their childhood because they were so traumatic on how they were treated, on how they thought they grew up in an environment that wasn't loving or whatever that was. Like, we all have a story. We all have some version of that. And so for me, when I started this journey of looking at all the stories that I made up about myself, of who I had to become to survive life, not live life, but survive life, that's what we're born into. We're born into this world that's like, I didn't create none of this out here. I created this show, but this type of show already exists. So I didn't create this platform. So when you realize and you get back to the very basics of life, those basic physiological needs of what Maslow's hierarchy chart says of what it is to be a human being, and the needs to survive life. But there's a part of us that doesn't want to survive life. There's a part of us that wants to live life and be free and just do things and talk to people and just share and just be open and be vulnerable. And that's kind of maybe how we start off. But then things happen. And then, but I was just shocked that a 2-year-old can make a choice about a parent, about a mother that really had no language. I don't know how well I talked at 2 years old. I know I knew some words, but I didn't have a full vocabulary. I was 2 years old. However, when you understand the body, the brain, how we're born with this soul, this spirit, this mind, these wills, these emotions that don't even need language, right? They don't need language. It's already in us. The rebellion is in us. The ability to be wrapped in iniquity is already in us because we're born in that. We're born into this world. And sometimes, we're born with feelings and emotions that was transferred from the mother's womb to us. And we experience the anxiousness of this world because that's what we heard inside the womb. It really goes around to be a lot of different things, right? And so as we talk about, the life of the series here, the 2-year-old, I'm very grateful for my grandparents who stepped in to take care of me as my mom was going to work and doing her thing and creating her life with this child, right? And so My perception of that conversation was totally different than what was really happening and what really transpired of who Farron was as a child growing up. Farron was not disconnected from his mother. Farron actually was being taken care of while my mom got her work together, got her life together, and the love of my grandparents who saw me and said, "Hey, let us take care of him while you get yourself together." That's what grandparents do. That's love from a family. That's where family comes into play for those hard times. So yeah, some of us grew up with our grandparents for many different reasons. You know, temporarily, a year, 2 years. Mine was 6 years. I ended up staying there. However, what's your perception of that conversation? Sometimes, you know, you got to look and see. Sometimes you got to take a step back and look and see, like, what did you make that mean about you? And sometimes our truth, our perceptions, our perspectives, our interpretations may not be exactly what happened. There may be some pieces of the puzzle that might be missing. And so when I done that work, when I looked at that for myself, yeah, I saw that, oh my God, what stories, thoughts, ideas did I make up at 2 years old? That's life of a 2-year-old. Disconnected with Love. That is an inspirational read that's out right now. FarronD.com if you want to check that out. It is on, you know, all the major platforms as far as my website, as far as Kindle, Amazon. You can find it there. It's real easy. That's the life of a 2-year-old. The life of a 5-year-old is also on there, as well as we'll get to the other one you see over there in the corner at the 10 o'clock hour, 10-minute hour right there, 10 o'clock hour. It's the life of an 8-year-old. But yeah, that's those are the conversations that I believe that if we really told the truth about where we are in life, if we don't suppress or resist the things that happened to us in our childhood, that we could actually be free from some of the things that we're experiencing in our adult life. The freedom that I got from discovering that 2-year-old decision about my mom was the last piece of me actually being reconnected to my mom after 53 years, 52 years, right? So imagine living 50 plus years thinking, believing, feeling that your mom, you know, you're disconnected from your mom. How do you think that looks? How would that look for you, realizing 50 plus years later that you wasn't disconnected from your mom, but you felt that in your life and you actually lived from that? It's not just a feeling, but then we live from it. We're used by disconnection. We're used by disconnection. And if you realize that you're being used by disconnection, then what if you're used by not being disconnected? So if you feel like you're disconnected, imagine what that would feel like if you were connected. And maybe you are the key to that reconnection. I was. My mom didn't do this work. My mom didn't take these classes. I did the work for myself and discovered some things like that. So those things are very important. That's the life of that first part of that episode there. You know, as we move down to the 15 past the hour, you see that's Trench Talk. That is my original military talk show. 2013, it went live. I came up with Trench Talk in basic training, 1989. Just being out there in that new environment with these people that I didn't know anybody, you know anyone. Yet we trained and developed to want to stand for each other and willing to die for one another, right? So I don't know about when you went to basic training, but we were still digging foxholes. Now they had some foxholes that were already prepared, but I don't know about y'all, but we dug foxholes. I might not have been in that era, but I was in one of those last eras of digging the foxhole. And so that trench talk, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know that there was a such job in the military called trench rats. Like that's a term in the military that was put on my heart. And I didn't know what it was. I just knew that the experience of that and talking to people, talking to these other fellow soldiers that are from all parts of the world, and here we are connecting on a level that as a 19-year-old, was new and fascinating, but also developing to be a soldier, giving my life to death at 19 years old, which that wasn't my concept at the time. But as I peeled off those military labels, looking at who I became from this basketball identity that I had for so many years as a child, because that's how I made friends at school, from changing different schools. The basketball court was where you found Farron, so that became my identity. I necessarily didn't want to go to the NBA with it. It was more of a recreational connection, stress relief, pretty much, because I used it to connect with other children, which relieves the stress. It relieved anxiety playing basketball. So you could see how sometimes exercising and these kind of sports and athletics that we take on becomes a part of an identity, because we get to be another person in that moment. I wasn't Farron, the new kid on the block. Now I'm Farron that's, shooting the 3-pointer. I'm Farron that's making the pass. I'm Farron in that, that identity. And so, yes, so that military identity, that basketball identity, at some point in life, those identities were threatened. They were challenged. And I was at the point where I didn't know who I was outside of those identities. After I had that exertion with sickle cell trait, I couldn't exercise anymore like I used to. My body started breaking down. My mental health, again, a lot of that worrying, a lot of those survival skills that we have to survive life can also take you out. And so understanding that and having that military identity, re-embracing that military identity, peeling off some of those layers of that military identity, the basketball identity, like there was a lot of identities that I had to go through to figure out what that would look like in a what's next, in a who am I, right? And as I played that video in the beginning, you heard from Caldwell's Education. I'm a part of that curriculum. I'm actually one of the trainers, the only actually trainer right now that's left that can teach that program. But you heard those guys that were sharing their experience of their own military career, of the things that they went through, and the cost of their families, the cost of being homeless, but most importantly, the experience of the cost, the vitality, the well-being, that cost. See, we focus on the activity of life costs, but what about the experience of life costs? The cost of love and affinity. It's difficult to have anxiety and depression and feel loved. Those don't go together. It's one or the other. You can't feel depression and feel connected to people. Or can you? I think that would be very difficult, having both of those emotions at the same time. Or maybe that's what keeps a person alive, because they can't go back and forth from being disappointed in themselves and remembering that they have family that they want to live for. But even that, do we need to live for our family? I know, and I know that because I said that for myself, because I hung on to my youngest daughter in my transition out of service, Deja. Like, I knew I didn't want to take my life. I knew I didn't want to leave her like that. I had mental toughness. I played basketball. But that anguish, that feeling that I felt was a different feeling. And so, yeah, sometimes I believe, we may need to put family members in front of us, but I still believe that you have to put yourself first too, and not in a selfish way. See, I'm talking about putting yourself first in an experience, in a living life, not an activity. See, most people feel like if I put my children first in an activity, then they'll like me more, they'll like me better. I ask to look at another side of that. Because if I'm well, then my family's going to be well. But if I'm trying to make my children well and I'm not well, what are my children going to see? What are my friends and family going to see? They're going to see me putting my children first and me still being frustrated with life. They're going to see me surviving life as I'm putting my children first. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong or good or bad. I'm just saying that look at the experience of that. We put our families on our backs or in front of us to be the driving force. It's not wrong. I just know for myself, it was out of order. And it really was hurting me more than it was helping me. Because I took on it with like a burden, like I took it on like a jacket, like I gotta, and I see that as a way to survive. And if I put my children and put my family in front of me, and if it doesn't turn out, then I get to blame them secretly, silently, emotionally. I did this for you, man. I did this for you, my son, and look what you did with it. Then there's no accountability, responsibility for myself. And then I'm still frustrated. Because maybe I'm trying to put my concerns on my family. That's not their concerns. Those are Farron's concerns. So what is that? I don't know. It's something. But these are the things that I had to go through that I talked about on Trench Talk, life before, during, and after service. Most recently, it became Black GI Radio. So I'm in between conversations right now on what that next step is for that military piece. But definitely Black GI Radio / Trench Talk, because I branded myself. A lot of people know me in the military community for Trench Talk as a show idea, as a segment. So I still keep it. And that's where we are with that. It's if you want to be a guest on Trench Talk, you're a military veteran, you support veterans, you have a company that supports veterans, you have a story, you're a relative or a dependent or a father or a mother of a veteran, more than welcome to be a guest here on the show in that segment there of Black GI Radio Trench Talk. And I named that Black GI Radio again because I am Black. And my community definitely needs a voice, right? And in a voice that not that we bash society, but there is an emotional piece to what it is to be a human being. And for some people, being accepted or being included or being a part of something and being Black was not looked upon as a good thing. Was frowned upon, or whatever perception of people have about the Black community. So yeah, I definitely want to be responsible for my community and be a platform where they can come and share their experience. But my show is for everyone. It's a human being conversation, so no one's left out. But yeah, that's the Trench Talk Black GI segment there. What else? We're gonna play a PSA and come back, and then I'm gonna go through the rest of the clock with you. And if you find one of these segments that you'd like to be a part of, you have something to talk about, I got you. You can be in one of the segments. You can be on for 5 minutes. You can be on for 15 minutes. You can be on for 20 minutes. You can be on for a half an hour. You can be on for the whole show. It's up to you. But I got space for everyone. This is my way to be a part of the community in different aspects of what I care about, right? And again, this is my own personal therapy. So right now, I'm actually in a therapy session because I did not want to do a show today. I really wasn't I really wasn't going to do the show today. But I am consistent, and I want it to be authentic. I don't want you to think that I come here every Wednesday like I'm ready to go. No, sometimes it takes a lot of effort, a lot of behind the scenes to produce the show. Right? So we're going to play a PSA, come back, and I'm going to touch into the next segment that you see there, which is Fahrenheit, right here on the Farron Dozier Show, the Military Broadcast Radio Network. Shout us out, what's the count? This is Farron from the Farron Dozier Show, 8 p.m. Pacific time on KCAA Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCAA Radio.com website, the station that leaves no listener behind, and MBR Radio. That's right, MBR Radio on all their streaming platforms, including MBR Radio on Roku TV, Sunday nights live, 8 p.m. Pacific time on KCAA Radio and MBRradio.us. The Farron Dozier Show. For more information, search farrond.com. Tune in to the Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCAAradio.com website on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific time. Brought to you by Sports Collective TV, Sports Collective Radio, and Sports Collective Media. We got the Heme Factor, we got In the Zone, and we got Fourth Down and the 20-second Timeout Sports segment. All for you right here on the Farron Dozier Show on KCA Radio 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCARadio.com website with my guest hosts Robert Lamar and Coach Will. Catch us on Sports Collective Media on Instagram and Facebook. And make sure you watch us Sunday nights at 8 p.m. on KCA Radio 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCARadio.com website. Music, talk, sports, and so much more. The Farron Dozier Show.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
All right, welcome back to the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. Yeah, I got a little recharge there in that commercial break. This next segment that I do, it's called Fahrenheit. You can't see that. How can I move out the way? Move out the way. All right, there we go. So Fahrenheit. So actually, that's my name. My name is actually Farron. Yes, it is Farron. My mom named me that as a baby when I was born. However, you know, in the Life of a series that we talk about, I got teased. I got teased about my name being Farron and Fahrenheit and Ferrari and Pharaoh and all these, whatever, Ferret, all those names. Yeah, so I didn't like it, and so I changed it. I changed it to a more masculine tone, which is Farron, spelled the same. I just made it more to where when people said it, actually it was Farrond, so people could say the whole thing like Farron, like that, Farron, not Farron. They wouldn't say Farron, they would say Farron. So a lot of my work in school papers has Farron, Farrond at the end. The D is for don't ask, because I didn't like my middle name either. My middle name is DeVille, and I didn't like that name because I got teased by that name too. And so, yes, we know that our peer age groups can be hard on us as children with each other. And so I did not like my name at all. So I changed it to Farron. And then in 2016 LA Talk Live, maybe 2015 LA Talk Live, I came back and I was doing some shows back at the station. I was there in the beginning. I was there in 2013, 14, left in 14, came back in 15 because I went to do a trench talk show for Calvet. Calvet actually had a government contract that they were using my show to interview the Calvet staff. And we actually traveled a couple of places with them to do some interviews. Shouts out to my teammate who was partnered with me at the time. That relationship came to an end. And so I went back. Where did we go? Well, we left. We did some episodes that you can still see on LA Talk Live, Trench Talk Live, and then we went to LA Talk Radio. So I was on LA Talk Radio as well, out there in the Valley, in Woodland Hills. We did about a year over there or so, 9 months. And then after that contract ended, I came back to LA Talk Live on my own and was able to bring all of my talk shows back. And I happened to be in the studio one day, and one of the broadcasters came in, we're hanging out, and I don't know where he got it from, but he just blurted out, "Oh, Fahrenheit, playing the hottest hits and the coolest conversations." And at that moment, I actually was like, "Oh, I like that," because that was a segment that I was doing music and talk, and so he blessed me with that title of Fahrenheit. Now I still wear Fahrenheit cologne, who was classic in the 90s, in the early 2000s. But yeah, so Fahrenheit is a segment that I do that's dedicated to, like I said, if you want to be a guest, I may invite a guest on here to talk about a song and a conversation, and that may be maybe a 5-minute talk, 3-minute talk about a hot hit that reminds them of something, and then we have a quick cool conversation about it, and they get to express themselves. I have a lot of those kind of talks. Matter of fact, I got a track for myself that I play. This is a track that I wrote right here. This is I call this the battle of the mind. It's the spirit and the subconscious mind having a conversation. This is Fahrenheit, playing the hottest hits and the coolest conversation. This is an instrumental created by me, Farron Dozier. That's the battle. That's the spirit, the soul, the mind, the body having the conversation. Here comes the body, though. The body's gonna drop in a second. I'm very proud of that. I got like 3 of those I mixed up together. That's that battle. That's that spiritual battle right there. Sometimes that's how we talk to ourselves. Mind, subconscious mind, your body's like, but I want to do it though. But your mind's like, no, it's not right. And your spirit's like, no, don't do it. Your soul is like, but it feels good. It's my track right there. Oh, you thought it was over, huh? Nope. I don't even make beats. but I made these. Oh, there it goes right there. Those are my feelings in that music right there. That's what it feels like when you trying to figure out life. That's what it felt like for me. My feelings in that track right there. Some people use music as therapy. I know my sickle cell community does. There we go. Let's go. Oh yeah, let's go. Original track. Now, I'm not a DJ. I'm an old style DJ though. This jockey, not the turntables DJ. They took our name. I'm an old school DJ. This jockey. But yeah, so that's Fahrenheit. Playing the hottest hits and the coolest conversations. You want to be a guest on the Fahrenheit segment? Hit me up. We'll talk about it. Give me the song. And then we'll just have an organic conversation about it. So I made that song on the military tour with Jody at Camp Roberts. We drove up there and he had this, he's a gospel artist. So he had his phone with that application on it, with that app on it. And he gave it to me, showed it to me a couple of times. I sat down and I just started listening. Like I said, I put my heart and soul in it, y'all. Put my heart and soul in that track right there. And that's what came out. If you want to be a guest at Farron Dozier, hit me up Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. For any segment of the show, you can be a guest. All right, that's going to end right there. Fade that out. All right, so this is the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. I hope you're enjoying today. Again, this is more of a therapeutic session for me personally. You know, I had to get this out of my system today. Just was in a weird mood. Weird mood. And not sad. Like it's not a bad mood either. It's not even a bad mood. I'm like, maybe it's like just a mellow, I don't feel like being bothered mood today. Maybe that's what that feels like. I don't feel like being bothered mood. Wordplay. Wordplay is one of my favorite shows because that is a show that I created because I realized that sometimes we use words that don't exactly mean what we mean to say. Right? So sometimes we use words that is not the right meaning, but yet we use the word anyway. And so to avoid that or to help that conversation, I have a show segment called Wordplay. And you can come on that segment. You can come and talk about what you want to talk about. You can come and share your story. You can come and share what you're up to. And we pretty much take a word, get the definition of that word, and then play. That out of there. Yeah, so that show is very important to me. Again, because me and my dad was doing that show together, and it was one that he passed away, and I did not. It was difficult. It was very difficult because I wanted us to do that show together. Like I created it, but I wanted he and I to have that as like a father-son conversation, that we both could take words. So we took a bunch of words, and we would find music. One of the episodes that we did together, I chose the word inspiration and karma. He chose destiny and another word. I can't remember what his other word was, but we both chose words, and we would talk about the definition of the word, and then we would play a song that matched or went with that word. And so, karma for me is one of those words that I believe that we use, but I believe we use it out of context. See, for me, karma is me hoping something bad happens to you because you did something to me bad, right? I even asked my dad on the show, is there a good karma? And we really don't talk about a good karma. We don't talk about the good things that happen to us as karma, but we usually use karma as a negative context, that we hope that, it'll come back on them. Or they did that to that person, it'll come back on them. Now, do you really understand what you're saying when you say that, though, with karma? You're saying with karma that you hope something bad happens to another person because of maybe something that happened to you by that person. But do you realize that you're the one carrying that weight? You're eating the poison while they go about their life. I don't know if people look at karma in that perspective, but to me, that's what karma is. So I have to remember the upset. I have to remember what happened and hope to hear that something bad happened to you in return. Isn't that called unforgiveness? Or is that just me? I don't have it all figured out. But in my mind, if I'm hoping that something bad happened to you, that means that lives over here with me. That doesn't live out with them. That lives in my world. And I'm making myself sick in my world by carrying the stress, carrying that upset, carrying that frustration, remembering. Am I the only one that looks at that like that could be a health problem? Our bodies are not designed to worry and carry stress. Our body's not designed for that. That's why the Bible says, you're not supposed to worry. No worries. Cast your cares. Seek ye first the kingdom, and all the stuff that you worried about will be added. Like, that's why the word says not to worry. To forgive 70 times 7. To love your neighbor with the same measure that you love yourself. Love your enemies. How can we believe in karma? And we wonder why cancer is such a byproduct of humanity. I'm not a doctor. I played the spot that said these are my own opinions. So I'm just saying, if you look and you understand the body is chemicals, the free radicals, the white cells, all of that, the food that we eat, our gut, all the chemicals that don't get digested, that are toxins. And we're living in unforgiveness on purpose. I just don't see how that works. That is a Buddhism and a Hindu belief. So as a Christ follower, as a kingdom citizen, I definitely can't be used by karma. That goes against the biblical principles. I can't be used by karma and be a Christ follower. I can't. Am I the only one? Am I the only one? Am I the only one? Am I the only one that doesn't see that karma is hurtful to yourself first? because that person gone about their life. They may not even remember what happened. Maybe they didn't even do that on purpose to you. Maybe they were dealing with something that day, and they lashed out on you, and then you take it and you hope that something bad happens to them because how they treated you or did something to you. But that lives in your space. Do we not understand that? Or am I just like on this talk myself? So that was karma. My dad believed in karma because it was in the music. So he learned about karma in a song, and he learned about karma that because he said something or did something to somebody, it would come back on him. That sounds like taking responsibility, being accountable for your actions. That sounds like self-forgiveness is missing. There's like some stuff missing right there in our behavior and what we're used by as a person. I just disagree that karma is something that is something to be used from, to talk about. That lives in your space. That doesn't live in that person's space. Karma. So there's a lot of good songs out there with karma. Check them out. A lot of great songs with karma. So yes, that song, I mean, that show is one of my favorites. So far, all four of these episodes right here could be a show by themselves. I mean, I could literally do a couple of hours on Life Other. I could do a couple hours on Trench Talk. I could definitely do a couple hours of the Fahrenheit segment, and the wordplay segment is easy a couple hours because you got music and talk. But I've cut them down to be, 7 minutes, 15 minutes. Just depends on where I'm at, how I want to design my clock for those shows. Or I take my guests through these topics and let them answer the questions. See that? Natural. So that's wordplay. One of my best wordplay choices was misunderstanding. Being misunderstood. Who's responsible for misunderstandings? Who's responsible for being misunderstood? Who's responsible for misunderstandings? Is it the person delivering the message or the person receiving the message that's responsible? Who's responsible for misunderstandings? The person delivering the message or receiving the message? I'll let you talk about that. Send me a message. Let me know what you think. Who's responsible for misunderstandings? The receiver or the deliverer? I got an answer for you. What else? The 20-second timeout sports segment. The 20-second timeout sports segment is actually one of the original episodes that I had on Blog Talk. I started internet radio in 2009 into 2010 and was doing the sports show. Shouts out to Sports Log and Deborah. Those were my two first co-hosts ever. In my one of the deepest, darkest parts of my life, I was told about internet radio and I should do a sports show because I was a huge sports fan. Today you couldn't tell because it's hard for me to watch sports. I lost interest in sports. I lost interest in a lot of things that I enjoyed. But that depression, anxiety, I lost interest. And sports was one of those. So I don't really care about sports as far as watching it or as far as the highlights and how many yards and who scored this and blah, blah, this and how many passes. I mean, that's just not me anymore. How many home runs so-and-so got and how many, spikes, whatever, who's on third, who's on fourth. Like I lost interest. I'm more of a mental toughness aspect of sports, as you could probably tell from my conversations. But the 20-second timeout sports segment is for me to interview different athletes, let them talk about their sports career, not me. I don't want to talk about it, but I give them the space. I give the space to have those sports conversations, whether it was just in elementary school or high school or college or professional level, take a 20-second timeout. You know, a 20-second timeout, that's a basketball timeout, 20-second timeout. And yeah, I also add music to that as well because I have a mental music segment. And so I ask that guest, that athlete, to send me the song that they're listening to in their headphones when they're preparing for a game or practice. A lot of us listen to different things in our headphones as we're getting ready, getting our minds situated. And so I take that song, we talk about their sports career, and then I ask the question, why did you give me this song around your mental toughness? I play the song, and then they hear the few bars, and then they share what comes natural. I love that segment too. Inside of that segment came a show and a segment called Sports Collective. Sports Collective was created again back in 2010, again with me and Sports Log, trying to figure out, play with these different names of the shows. We had the 20-second timeout sports segment. We had the Sports Collective media, Sports Collective radio, and I've just carried that name, Sports Collective, because again at LA Talk Live, we were doing the Sports Lounge Live. So I had 4 shows at LA Talk Live. So I had I had WDC radio. A few months later, that was March. I went to LA Talk Live in March. I dropped WDC radio there, and then in June I dropped the first episode of Trench Talk, and then shortly after Trench Talk in June, we launched Sports Lounge Live. So LA Talk Live had a sports show that we created. I was one of those first to have the sports show over there, and ran through a bunch of different co-hosts, through that episode. And as the show was transitioning, we needed to create our own sports show. And so I just revived Sports Collective. It became Sports Collective TV, Sports Collective Media, because we're on media, and radio, because now we're on all these different platforms. So yes, you can, if you saw the commercial, Sports Collective, on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. on KCA Radio. I do a segment here sometimes with Big Dre, because inside of the sports world, I have different segments for the different sports, right? So my football segment is Fourth Down. My baseball segment is Gloves for Days. My volleyball segment is Above the Net. What else? Basketball is Chasing Hoop Dreams. So I have a segment for each athlete, each sport, so that when I talk to that athlete, that segment is connected to them and their sport. All right, so that's the 20-second timeout sports segment. One of my favorite, because I get to talk about mental health as well, hydration, things like that with those athletes. Find out why is that stuff important to them. And you'd be surprised. I've had athletes opened up about mental health because it is so important. Again, we talk about our identity crisis. We talk about that athlete in that uniform for all those years and maybe make it to pros, or maybe not make it to pros, or maybe make it to college and not make it to college. And then who are they after that college, that uniform is done? So I really enjoy that, the 20-second timeout sports segment. Next up is What's the Count? What's the count? You want to know what the What's the Count is? Let me tell you what What's the Count is. This is the What's the Count segment. This is why that segment is so important. Do you remember studying sickle cell in biology class? What's the Count on sickle cell trait prevention is here to bring you awareness, education, and prevention conversations around the risk factors of this inherited gene. Visit wdconsct.org.
Muchos de nosotros nos vemos afectados por la enfermedad de células falciformes a diario y un número creciente simplemente no nos damos cuenta. Los impactos de esta enfermedad afectan a todas las personas y en especialmente a las personas de color y con antecedentes diversos. Estar en servicio conmigo y con los demás a medida que creamos una mayor conciencia sobre cómo identificar y dirigir el tratamiento de los rasgos de células falciformes y ayudar a las familias a saber cómo superar el trastorno de células falciformes. WDCONCT S.
This is Farron from the Farron Dozier Show, 8 p.m. Pacific Time on KCAA Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCAA Radio.com website, the station that leaves no listener behind, and MBR Radio. That's right, MBR Radio on all their streaming platforms, including MBR Radio on Roku TV, Sunday nights live, 8 p.m. Pacific Time on KCAA Radio and MBRradio.us. The Farron Dozier Show. For more information, search farrond.com. Tune in to the Farron Dozier Show on KCA Radio 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCARadio.com website on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific Time. Brought to you by Sports Collective TV, Sports Collective Radio, and Sports Collective Media. We got the Heme Factor, we got In the Zone, and we got Fourth Down and the 20-second Timeout Sports segment. All for you right here on the Farron Dozier Show on KCA Radio 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCARadio.com website with my guest hosts Robert Lamar and Coach Will. Catch us on Sports Collective Media on Instagram and Facebook. And make sure you watch us Sunday nights at 8 p.m. on KCA Radio 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCARadio.com website. Music, talk, sports, and so much more on the Farron Dozier Show. Zetovia salve, made from natural and organic ingredients, good for inflammation, poor circulation, hemorrhoids, yeast infection, lip sores, dry coughs, eye pain, minor cuts and bruises, and ready to purchase at botanicaherbalco.com. 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 That Botanica Herbal CO, that is a Dr. Sebi's from his camp. I actually take Dr. Sebi's supplements. I took one, some liquid today. It takes like 12 hours to kick in. Ooh, let me tell you. Talk about cleaning out parasites and all of that. So I've been taking Dr. Sebi's supplements for a few years now. I'm actually looking to do one of the, he's known for curing diseases, sickle cell and lupus and a lot of leukemia, all types of things. And so there is a compound that you can take. And so I'm probably going to take it in January. It's about 3 to 4 months. And it all makes sense because when you look at the red blood cells, your normal red blood cells, and this goes for my show right here, What's the Count? The red blood cells live 120 days. For normal adult hemoglobin, 120 days. My sickle cell trait gene only lives about 20 days or so, under 120 possibly. So I have one because if I got malaria, that red blood cell with the sickle cell trait will die off quicker and come back at 40%. So I could survive malaria if my red blood cells got attacked from malaria and those 40% died off quicker to get rid of that virus, and then the 40% come back, and then I can survive that 40 as the other 60% starts to rejuvenate itself in the bone marrow, and I get back to my 60-40. So imagine if your body is inflamed, or you have mucus, or you have inflammation, and so those red blood cells, they're dying off and they're coming back, but they're coming back in what? In inflammation. They're coming back with mucus inside the cells. So by taking that compound, if you clean your body of the toxins and the mucus out of your bloodstream, and you're rejuvenating, you're creating new red blood cells as you're cleaning out the old toxins, what happens? It looks like that. As you're cleaning out and the new red blood cells are coming in, guess what happens? Now, all of the inflammation is out of your body, and you're producing fresh, clean, no toxins, very little toxin in your body. So your body is no longer acidic. And then you feed it the proper nutrients, you feed it the proper enzymes and minerals that the body needs that we don't really get from food. You don't get that much from a salad. You don't get that much. We don't get, come on, we tell the truth. So imagine that's the process. So if those red blood cells die off and come back in 120 days, and I do that and I cleanse my blood from the mucus for 4 months, guess what happens in 4 months? There's no more disease. He was an engineer. He used herbs to clean the body from mucus. Red blood cell conditions. 40 different diseases are created from your red blood cell deficiency, like my sickle cell trait, like thalassemia, like C trait, like D trait, like OA red, like 1,000. Don't count the other types of red blood cells conditions or the white blood cell conditions. So I've got friends that taken this compound that haven't had a sickle cell crisis since 2015, and even longer. Like I said, he's known for curing. He went to court and won the cases that he proved that he cured those diseases. And again, in my wordplay segment, 2 segments prior, right here, you got to remember the definition. What's the definition of a cure? Sometimes it's just healing. Some people think a cure means that it's got to go away completely. So language is so important. Language is key. So yes, look up the definition of cure. Sometimes it just means that the body is healing, and that's the cure. It's found its way to heal. And if you take care of your body and you flush out the mucus and you get your acidity out and you get it back to a pH level balanced body optimal state of running, then you're not going to be sick. Cancers can't live in a pH alkaline body. Cancer cells only can survive in an acidic body. So when you understand that, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So, I live in pain. My body's inflamed. I'm stiff, but I'm gonna try it though. I'm gonna try it and see what happens to my body. If I can heal my body and get rid of these inflammation and these, whatever's in there, and maybe get some 60% good red blood cells going, because my sickle cell trait is going to still do what it do. So, but maybe I can flush out the mucus in my blood, and I still might be left with pains because the joint damage is the joint damage. I can't do nothing about that. But this whole show, this is the main reason why I'm even right here on the radio, because of what's account. That is my sickle cell trait prevention conversation. It's also sports related as well. And so that's after that episode of sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdomyolysis. That's where my life changed. That morning, that was the perfect morning, the perfect storm, however you want to language it, but it was the perfect day for that transition of my life to happen. See, I believe that God, my will, I'd be in the military right now still, if it was my will. If I had my way, I wouldn't even be right here. I would be in some country somewhere serving still, probably a sergeant major somewhere, on my 30-something year, or maybe on my way out by now, because I've been retired 12 years. So maybe I might be out by now, but I would probably still try to stay in as long as possible. Oh, but yeah, so God does not, he gives us our free will, but he will, if he's got a purpose, he's got a calling on your life, you might not see it happening, you might not experience it this way that I experienced it. I mean, I didn't think it was a calling. I just, yeah, it was tragic. It was close to death. And I'm learning not to even look at it that way, but I was dying on the inside. And if you look at sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdo and sports, I mean, some athletes, some military personnel have died from the same symptoms and the same experience that I went through. But God had a calling on my life, and so it was time for me to get ready to get out of the military. So that seed that was planted in my mother's womb, that sickle cell trait, I was in the right environment. Must have been the right temperature. It must have been the right climate. I was in the right space. Must have had the right amount of water or whatever. And that happened. And boom, my sickle cell trait genes mutated. I collapsed. I was dying. I mean, it makes sense though. It makes sense because how else could I relate to the suicide conversation? How else could I relate to all the topics that I'm dealing with as I'm still healing today? That I got a better understanding because I got into the word. I went to God about my life because in my survival state of mind, it just wasn't working. And so, yeah, he showed me that, that sickle cell trait gene that's been passed on. Like, how many generations did that gene get passed down to get to me? So from my dad, from his dad, and from my that gene has traveled for centuries through my family's bloodline to get to me, to then become the messenger for my part of the sickle cell trait. And I don't deal with the whole aspect of sickle cell trait. I do support it and we have conversations, but there is an aspect of this sickle cell trait conversation that is personal to me. And so I understand why that had to happen. I understand why my career had to come to an end and the way it came to an end, because I had a voice in that. I had the gene inside my body to deliver this message that I've been sharing with you on this show. Do you remember studying sickle cell in biology class? What's the Count on Sickle Cell Trait Prevention is here to bring you awareness, education, and prevention conversations around the risk factors of this inherited gene. Visit wdconsct.org. You see, inside suicide ideation, the willingness to die, those are things that if you find your what's next, possibly that could be removed. And so, yeah, the willingness to die has been desensitized because I found my voice in the conversation that my voice is needed, that I was born to deliver a message. I don't say I don't still deal with it. There are days that I'm like, nobody cares about that talk, bro. That's my mind. Like, nobody cares about that. Sometimes I have proof that nobody cares. And then I get this one email, or I get this one message, or I get this one phone call, and then it all makes sense. You see, my conversation is not for the whole world. Even though sickle cell trait is a global conversation, it's not mine for the whole world. I understand that God is going to put the people in front of me that I need to meet to deliver that message to. So it might not be for you, but the byproduct of it is that now you've heard the conversation. So if you hear somebody that talks about sickle cell trait and they bring up a subject that doesn't sound like anything that I talk about or you heard from me, you then get to say, hey, you know what? That's not true. Sickle cell trait can have complications, right? So not only do you become an ally, but you also can help interrupt this conversation. It's called the ripple effect. I deliver the message. I don't get instant gratification in that conversation. Sometimes I might hear something from somebody who, needed to hear that right at the moment. And sometimes I don't never hear about it. And sometimes it comes back around 5 years later. Not important. I'm a leader of my conversation, not of mankind. So I just deliver my message. If it's 5 people or 10,000 people, it's the same energy, the same message, the same intensity. It is important, health and safety. That's what's to count. if you want information about What's the Count, right there, wdconsct.org. You can go there, check that out. Military tour, got some education pieces on there, got some interviews on there. Everything that you need to know about sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdo and some basics. All there. Shouts out to Dr. Maisha and Tiana, my board members. If you need some support around sickle cell trait, you need some consultations. You need support to get your doctor to understand your sickle cell trait better because they don't know about it where you live. If you reach out to us at WDC on SCT, click on Who's Dr. Maisha or send me a message and I'll get it to her and you can have a talk with her. And what she can do is she can have a consultation with you. She can actually work with you to get to your doctor so that you can start getting the proper care from your sickle cell trait or your child's episodes. Because we do have complications. There are issues with sickle cell trait. It's not benign. There's ECAS, the exertion with sickle cell and rhabdo. There's blood clots. There's a rare kidney cancer. There's kidney disease. There's a lot of things. Blood clots. There's a lot of things that can go on. Retina detachment. There's a lot of things that can happen. And also passing that gene to your child and possibly having a baby with sickle cell anemia or disease. So we cover all that. You can't see it, but if I put it on this view, you'll probably be able to see that over there. No, you can't see it. Nah, but that's it right there. That's my banner right there. Yeah, so that's my awareness. So that's the What's the Count. Very, very important. You know, that's something that we talk about. And yeah, if you want more information, wdconsct.org. I don't know why. I don't know. I should have put that camera on there like that. Boom. Got that. Okay, now you can see it for what it says. What's the count on sickle cell trait? That's it. So that's me. Now it's over there. Oh, now it's right here. Where is it? Oh, now it's over here. So that's me. I got one that mutates, and I got one that's normal. I got a A and I got an S. A and an S. I got an A and an S, A and an S, A and an S, and that's me. I got one that mutates. I got one that's normal. 40% of my red blood cells are the S, 60% are the A. And in that conversation, what's possible is exertional sickling with rhabdomyolysis, is what I experienced, which is why What's the Count is important as a conversation, right? So thank you for that. 2 more, and then we're out of here. Yeah, we'll be right at our 90 minutes. Life of an 8-year-old. That is one that is very important for me. The life of a 5-year-old was my mom. I mean, the life of a 2-year-old was my mom, but I also have the life of a 5-year-old with my dad. I have the life of a 6-year-old with my elementary 2nd grade classmates that laughed at me for reading with a ruler. I have the 8-year-old, which is back again to my mom, which pretty much set the tone of our relationship at 8 years old, because that's where I made it mean that my mom abandoned me. I was already disconnected, but that one was abandonment. So I had proof. I had body sensations. I told myself I can't trust my mom. I have to be responsible for this key. The latchkey kid of 1978 is the life of an 8-year-old. And so if you do the research, look at that. If you look it up, latchkey kid syndrome is a real conversation. It affects us in that era, from failed marriages to obesity to relationship issues and abandonment issues, or whatever that is. Some people even grew up in that latchkey kid era that don't even want to have kids themselves because they had to grow up and take care of their siblings. Like, that's the impact of that generation, that some people don't even want to have children because they feel like they gave up their childhood because they had to raise their siblings and they were only like 9 years old, 12 years old, taking care of their siblings, feeding them, changing diapers, walking them, picking them up from school, because they felt like they didn't have life. So I don't want no kids. Me, I made me something about my mom, which my mom then as an 8-year-old represented all women. So I can't trust my mom. I can't trust women. And that's what came out of my mouth. That's how I acted. You want to be in a relationship, but then one day, oh, she's going to leave me, and then sabotage. Destroyed relationships. No woman had a chance the first 40 years of my life. So we wonder why our relationships turn out the way they turn out. Sometimes it's because of the decision that you made about yourself in your childhood ages. And then you live from that upset or that belief. So yeah, I lived for 30. I discovered that at 40, that I made up a story about my mom so that's 32 years that I lived that my mom abandoned me. And I had to be responsible for that key. And I took a job in the military as a supply sergeant where I had all the keys to the kingdom. I had all the keys to the armory. I was the most responsible person in the unit. And I proved that to myself. That's what that key did in 1978, because I couldn't lose that key. That key represented me being responsible, and it was a way that I proved to myself. I put myself in situations to prove that I was responsible. And people would tell you, oh, Farron, he's responsible. He might not be committed, but he's responsible. I was responsible. But it didn't help. It was more of a fracture than it was. I mean, it worked out in the military because I had a great career. I had a property book of $5 million, $6 million, tracked from a paperclip to a tank. I had the keys to the vault. I had the keys to the M16s. I had the keys to the saws. I was the guy. Physical security, I got the keys. I got the keys to the trailers. I got the keys to the vehicles, to the connexes, to the this. I got the keys. You got to come see me for the keys. 8-year-old kid living out his dream in the military. Not necessarily happy. Sometimes exhausted. Sometimes exhausted, emotionally exhausted because I got these keys. Now everybody's looking for me because I got the keys. And I wouldn't just give the key. You gotta sign my roster, bro. Oh, just give me the key real quick. I'm gonna go. No, you're not going nowhere. Nope. I don't care if you go in your locker. I don't care if your locker's right there. You're gonna sign my key, because if you lose that key, I gotta rekey everything. I have physical security, log books, and all that. No. I came across as being arrogant. That was one of the byproducts of my behavior as a supply sergeant. Is my unit thought that I was arrogant. How I acted about those supplies, adamant. But they wouldn't. If you was in my shoes, you wouldn't just give the key away and then they take it and then they lose it. And I'm responsible for the keys. And no, how come you didn't sign? They go. First question is, how come you didn't sign out the key, Farron? Sergeant D, how come you didn't sign out the key, Sergeant D? Sergeant D, Staff Sergeant D, at that. Staff Sergeant D, how did you not sign the key out? This is the procedures, 2062, hand receipt, sign out roster. Why did they not sign the key out? Where is the key? Where my quartermasters, where my supply sergeants at out there? Y'all know that world? I know you do. So that Life of an 8-year-old is an inspirational read. Again, it is also at farrond.com. The Life of the series. I got 10 decisions. 10. I found 10 decisions. 10 that I made up from 2 years old into my 50s. Yeah. I discovered that my mom didn't abandon me, that it was only 90 minutes, and cognitive behavior helped me. I recommend for my VA brothers and sisters or whoever out there that's looking for a mental health class to soften your heart with. Cognitive CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, is magical, because you grab those stories and those thoughts and how exaggerated that your mind thinks, how exaggerated that you talk, I don't trust my mom. I don't trust women. I can't. All or none, not real. So I unraveled it. I was willing to do the work. It was hard. It was harder on my mom than it was me, because I could see my mom when I talked about it. My mom, I know she made it could make a parent feel like there was a bad parent. But I want my mom to know I love you. I wasn't sharing it to make you seem like a bad parent. I was sharing it because I was getting free from it. And maybe my approach wasn't the best approach, but that was me unraveling those stories in a way that it gave me my strength back. It gave me my power back. And it also helped other people in the same time discover that they were latchkey kids and what they were dealing with. But I could see it could make a parent feel, or a father or a mother feel like they was a bad parent, like they did something wrong. But no. And my mom said I was just trying to, she trusted me with the key. That's the part that I didn't get at 8. She trusted me with the key. She trusted me with the keys. And she taught me how to be responsible. So what she wanted to do was really fulfilled. It was my perception of what I made it mean about Farron. You see that? You got to check your perception first, and then go find out if that's aligns with what your parent or your mother or father tells you, because you might hear something that's a piece of the puzzle that was missing to complete that space, to where you realize that, oh shoot, that's not what happened. You mean it didn't happen like that? You mean, yeah, it didn't happen like that. You only seen, and then you have to look when you for your self-forgiveness is you was a child. So you got to forgive yourself too. You forgive your parents, but you forgive yourself too as well, because the mind of a child doesn't know what it is to be an adult. The mind of a child, you don't know what it is to be. I'm 55 trying to figure out what it is to be an adult right now. Come on. You're going to hold that against your parents? How old were your parents when you were born? Like you gotta challenge. And so CBT will do that for you. Challenge those thoughts up against something outside of how you feel about yourself or how you view life. Find some principles that you can challenge, that you trust and have confidence in, that you can unravel your life inside of. And for some of us, we use the Word of God in addition to the cognitive behavior and the personal development classes. Yes. So today, I filter all the world stuff that I learned, education. I filter through what the Bible has to say. It's like a strainer. If I can't find it in Scripture, then it doesn't fit that. Because what I did was, the Word gives me my strength. When I feel like I'm weak, I'm strong in Christ. When I'm weak, I'm strong. In the world, when you weak, you weak. You can't be vulnerable in the world. You can't show your emotions and feelings as men in the world. But in God's Word, so you got the wordplay, you got the world, WORLD. Take out the L of world, and you're left with what? The Word. So there's no L's in the world. I mean, in the Word. There's L's in the world, but there's no L in the Word. That's wordplay. But there is an L in the Word, but it's called love. So it depends on how you want to look at that wordplay. The L is not in the Word, but it is in the Word as love, because it's actually the key to everything is love. So the L is still in the Word, but it's inside the Word. You got to go find the L. So yeah, so say to my mom, thank you for allowing me to go through this healing journey. I know it was difficult for you to hear those stories all the time, for me to talk about it, but it was really my healing journey. And today, again, there's no blame. there haven't been any blame since I was 40. There's been no blame for 15 years. I've actually been really good, and I'm complete. Like, I share that story now as a testimony. There's no upsets. So imagine when you heal from your parents and your environment, and you pass the stories on to your children. Are you passing upset to your children? Or are you passing an experience of before, during, and after, so your child can know where they came from and how life was? And yes, life might be hard or difficult or challenging or whatever that word is for you, but at the same time, it's not. It might feel like it, or you might hear people talk about it like that, but your life doesn't have to be like that. You choose life the way it is and the way it isn't. Life is not hard. Life is not, it's not fun and exciting and dangerous anymore. Life is just the way it is and it's the way it isn't. And if I can accept life being dangerous, I can accept life being not dangerous. If I can choose life the way it is as being loved, I can choose being unloved. I can choose grief the way it is, and I can choose grief the way it isn't. I can choose loss the way it is, and I can choose loss the way it isn't. But I had to learn that. I learned that years ago, and I just got it newly this last 2 months. And I heard it at 40, danced around it between 40 and 55. And now this class that I'm in actually focused on it. Actually, this is the third time I take this class. So the other stuff that I got out of those first 2 times wasn't this. Now, the third time around, I got this. And I needed this because that gave me patience as a virtue. See, patience as a kingdom key, I got that. You don't do patience, you be patient. So you practice the fruit of the spirit of being patient. So when you be patient, then guess what? You start to experience it and you start practicing. Your mind, your heart downloads it and it reminds you, hey, you know what? You're not being patient. Oh yeah, that's right. But when you get patience as a virtue, that means that it's in your heart and it is now wrapped in your subconscious mind, to the point where the other stuff, the anxiousness and all that, doesn't even pay attention because you're now swimming in patience. I'm swimming in vulnerability because I said I wasn't vulnerable. I'm swimming in it. I'm swimming in it. I got patience as a virtue. My heart downloaded it. Yes, it still has anxiousness in there, but it's like the ocean is patient, and then the little water barriers, that's where anxiety is over there. I can see it bouncing up and down, but I'm actually in patience in my mind because I'm swimming in the ocean of patience. Oh yeah, and then I see like another little thing that's in the water over there that could be frustration in there bouncing around. So I can see patience. I'm swimming in patience, but I can see the little barriers, bouncing there. You know how they have them lined up across? Yeah, each one of those are those little barriers, but that are, impatience is one of those barriers bobbing around over there. But now I'm swimming in patience as a virtue. But it took that's 15 years of work. That's 15 years of constantly looking at my life and looking at the stories, checking my thoughts, checking my body sensations, checking the stories that I made up. Is that story real? Is that exaggerated? What was going on? Let me find out some more information. Oh, I didn't know that part of it. Now my action patterns, my memory patterns, and my perception patterns are, I could tell you that they're not accurate. They're not accurate all the time. There's some missing thought pieces in there. There's some missing perception pieces. There's some missing action patterns, memory patterns. We think we can remember everything. We don't remember everything that happened. We remember bits and pieces. The piece that reminds you of who you had to be to survive that pain. And lastly, Music Marks and Place in Time, the soundtrack to life. That is one of my most favorite shows of all. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how much more time I'm going to be doing this kind of show, but I'm being drawn to do the Music Marketplace in Time, the soundtrack to life. That is my favorite segment. I have 6 questions and I play music. It is a music talk show, all based on the soundtrack of your life. So if you would like to be a part of that episode, hit me up at Farron Dozier, FarronD.com. You can find me, and I will make you, be a guest. I hope you had a good time today. I appreciate you. Again, I didn't know how today's episode was going to turn out. I was really just in the space of, I don't know what that space was. I don't even know what word to say. I wasn't mad or sad. I was just like low mood stress, I guess. Maybe a little bit of self-loathing because I was just like, woe is me. Right? But regardless, we made it through. Therapy session is complete. Shouts out to Military Broadcast Radio Network. Thank you for listening in. I'm your host, Farron Dozier, retired Army Sergeant First Class. Catch me here on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific Time and on LA Talk Live Sundays at 8 p.m. Like I said, I don't know what 2026 is going to look like. I've done enough shows for the last 15 years that I really don't have to do another episode live. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. You can catch me on Beyond 2D every second and fourth Wednesday. Well, Tuesday, we got a couple more shows for this season, and then we go on break, and then we come back, and then we're moving from Tuesdays to Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So I'll do that show, and I'll do this show in the evening time. But yeah, I'm not sure where my radio personality life is going to go. I may not complete it completely. I may just change it up a little bit. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. But I just do know there's a change coming. It's wordplay. That's Beach Mark's Place in Time. So thanks for listening in. I'm out of here. Appreciate you. Do the work. If you heard anything from this episode today, the willingness to do the work. But before you do the work, the willingness to be the work. You got to be it. You have to apply it. Be it. Be patience. Be love. Be kindness. Be caring. Be calm. Whatever ways of being. If you're being upset and frustrated, go find the opposite experience that matches the opposite of that. If it's frustration, maybe you need to be calm. If it's frustration, maybe you need to be patient. Look at the opposite of your behavior, the negative, disempowering context. What word gives you power? What word gives you your power back? If it's not frustration, what is the other side of frustration for you? And go be that. And the more you practice that, the less frustration you will get because your heart will start to soften and you will be able to start practicing being calmness. That's all I did. That's all I was being. I just being used by those principles. So be used by cognitive behavior. Be used by grief counseling. The VA's got grief counseling. Be used by the curriculums that you take that are out there. They're not conceptual. If it sounds good for them but not you, then you're not being it. All right? We're human beings, not human doings. So remember, be, do, and have. You've heard it. To be or not to be. That's the question. There's no what you got to do. We love you, Nike, but you just can't do it. If you just do it, you're going to be doing it frustrated. Don't discount the human being experience. We're human beings, not human doings. This is the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. Let me change that background before I get out of here. Boom. All right. We got Sports Collective. So check this out. I'll show you what we got. We got Sports Collective. This is that's Trench Talk, the Farron Dozier Show for sure. We got the IE Hounds. We got EQ Athletics. We got the clock right there. Oh, we got the sickle cell trait. Straight Talk with Farron, where I share my story and my journey listen, share, discuss. Sickle cell trait awareness. All right. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for listening in. I got to get out of here. Remember, we're human beings, not human doings. Shout out what's the count.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.